Guys, welcome to my Rumble Snacks 123. I say again, welcome to my Rumble Snacks 123. And today, guys, what I want to talk about is a topic why discipline is the real currency in today's world. Say it again. Why discipline is the real currency in today's world. Now, um, obviously, there's a global conversation, not just America. You lived, worked with people from different countries. Discipline is a universal concept. Rich or poor, it doesn't matter. Um, rich or poor, it applies to everybody. So, if you're watching this from the United States, India, Bangladesh, Indonesia, or whatever, wherever you're watching this from, this applies to you. All right. Now, um, discipline does not mean punishment. And I'll say it again, discipline does not mean punishment. Many times people think that discipline, because it requires some form of structure or certain set routine, that sometimes it may require us to make certain sacrifices in order to get a certain outcome. So many times people equate discipline with punishment, and that's not necessarily the case. Yes, does discipline sometimes require us to make sacrifices? Does discipline sometimes require us maybe going the extra mile, like maybe um go to bed late, wake up early, you know? Um, I guess you can say some people call it burning the midnight oil. But nevertheless, um, discipline sometimes it does require denial of self, and I believe this is where people may equate discipline as punishment, because they may have to temporarily delay themselves, maybe from certain immediate gratification. you know. But if you look at the big picture, and this is why this is global for everybody. Discipline wins in the long run. And I'm sorry, discipline wins in the long run. you know, Discipline, equates to structure, consistency, self control. And when you talk about self control, denying yourself of self gratification, or maybe certain pleasures that you may want to partake in, or may require, you may want to be a little bit lazy and don't feel like doing it. But discipline um, is a tool, and also can be a lifestyle that will cause you to maintain your consistency of habit, you know, consistency of habit, structure, consistency of habit, self control. Now, why discipline shows up more in struggling countries? Now, let me say this, okay? I know some of this is going to cross into geo politics. Obviously, I'm quite sure you guys are aware and have heard, of what's going on with the United States, with what happened in Venezuela, and now the United States, they want Greenland, you know, and I have my personal opinions, pertaining to that. I personally feel that even with Venezuela, this is just my personal opinion. I don't think that the United States should have went into Venezuela and, so to speak, invade and remove I guess, their leader from power. Now, granted, if you have a bounty, what I'm saying, for that particular leader, and he needs to face judgment for maybe some things that he's done, okay, I can get with that. But to be honest with you, for the reasons that they say they went into Venezuela, it doesn't justify the ends to the means. If you're saying that it's just for some drug and weapons trafficking, and these guys are got maybe say small ships, maybe some mules or whatever like that to try to bring this stuff into the United States. I mean, you could have set up a task force, DEA, CIA, covert ops, you know what I'm saying? Obviously Delta, they do this stuff all the time. The military and civilian law enforcement could have taken care of that if it was small, you know? Now, they say it was because of drugs and weapons, but now, as it unravels, which I said before, it's about the oil. Venezuela, I believe, is the largest producer and have the most crude, oil. And so they're trying to run the okey doke, on the American public and the global public, that hey, um, Exxon and these big corporations say that we can't it's not worth going into Venezuela, and we're not going to try to drill for that oil because it's not usable or it's not worth it. What I'm saying? Now that's turning out, to be a big lie. What I'm saying? I mean, that's a big white lie right there, and everybody knows it. But this is going to elude. I'm gonna show you where I'm going with this and how this all ties in. Then you also have the United States now. They want to take Greenland. They want first they try to talk about consider buying it from Denmark, and now um, DJ Trump, what I'm saying, is considering we're gonna take it. If Denmark or if Greenland doesn't want to willingly be purchased by the United States, then we can take it by military force. And um here's where I'm talking about discipline. This is why I named it that. Discipline is the currency. What I'm saying? That's the real world currency, versus having money and all of your military might. And it's unfortunate, but the United States, the United States is slipping. They are showing a lack of discipline, you know, and how they got here is because of a lack of discipline. And when I talk about the US lacking discipline, um and I am American, what I'm saying, I have freedom of speech. So I have the right, what I'm saying, to say, to speak my opinion. Okay, and this is my opinion. Um the United States has been living, so to speak, compared to other global nations, high off the hog. And how did we do that? Through the US dollar and US debt. When Nixon took the United States off the gold standard, back in I think it was 1970 or something like that. Was it 70 or 72? Anyway, you know, um, or it might have been 69, but he took the U.S. off the gold standard, and so therefore the dollar or the U.S. debt was no longer backed by gold, and so once he took the U.S. off the gold standard, U.S. dollar off the gold standard, then they start printing money, like crazy, you know, and because it has, it has obviously every resource, what I'm saying, but it has military might, you know, to back it. So that's how the United States is able to enforce, its rule of law, and also that is part of the machine that it uses to back its debt. Normally, your military is normally that's the last tool that a nation normally use. Normally, is their military. The United States has, if not the best, it's got to be the top two, you know, on the top two. But I believe the United States has um, the strongest military, or if not, it's top two. It's either between it's going to be obviously you know who it is, United States, Russia, United States, China, and Russia. So it's between them three. What I'm saying, and probably really the U.S. and China, but Russia is definitely a formidable opponent. Their military is off the hook, but that is how the United States is able to enforce it. And also, you have to take a look at how the United States strategically positioned itself behind that dollar globally. Look at all the military bases that the United States operates out of worldwide. They don't only have bases in America, but they have them in throughout Europe. Some in the Middle East. Antarctica. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and even Greenland itself. You know what I'm saying? So the United States, Asia, it's got bases all over. You see what I'm saying? And if the world did not use the United States dollar, then the United States would not be able to afford the military that it has or its military spending, and be able to keep all of these different bases, satellite bases, you name it, you know what I'm saying? And Department of Defense operations, all of this stuff. They wouldn't be able to do it if they were not able to get the world to use the United States dollar, and they lack discipline in their spending, you know. They just printed and spent too much money. Another area where they lack discipline was big corporations wanting immediate gratification. So they wanted big profits. You know what I'm saying? But they wanted to pay their employees less. And so what did they do? They took the corporations, they moved and they outsourced it. They went to other countries, but still sold back in America. So instant gratification, and it's sad to say that our government is like that, and also that these U.S. corporations are like that, but it's also trickled down into our population. And if you want to know where the United States, if you want proof of this, not just in our budget but the United States being in so much debt, you can even look at the people, look at the overweight and obesity rates in the United States of America. That's one example of a country that has had opulence and so much wealth and had things its way that it has afforded its citizens a certain standard of living to where they're so used to convenience that um, they don't need, what I'm saying, to discipline themselves because they don't have to deal with struggles, or they got everything at their fingertips that money can buy and that they can buy with a credit card. That right there, that's about as plain as you can get. So it starts with our government and the elites, but it also has trickled down into the masses, into our population, the American way. You understand what I'm saying? Where we don't even, produce as much as we should or like we used to. You know what I'm saying? We became so wealthy that we can afford to outsource our labor to other people and let other lesser tier nations, if you want to say, or other nations, do the work for us. As a result, I mean, China's a superpower, but now China produces 95% of the world's goods. But America lack, what I'm saying, of discipline. You know, um, they let money and power go to his head. As you can see, how they acting, wanting to do hostile takeovers. You just can't go. What are you gonna do? You're just gonna start taking lesser nations if they don't want to have the United States annex it or colonize it. That's not right. And now it's gotten to a point to where because of the United States lack of discipline and structure, they are now beginning to turn on its own with the Western NATO beginning to infight over, what I'm saying, this issue with Green. And they're making some of their neighbors or allies, what I'm saying, looking at them with the side eye, be like, hey, what I'm saying, well, if you go to Venezuela and you start with Greenland, what I'm saying, then who's going to be next? you know and what the United States must learn, and that includes our president, and I know it's not just him, there's elites and other politicians behind him, but it ain't just him. But you know you cannot buy and bully your way, throughout the world globally. You can't. Eventually every bully meets their match. And the United States, just like the rest of the world, it needs its allies. You need, what I'm saying, just like no man is an island, neither is any nation. United States can't make it in this world, by itself. If it were not, for the global economy and our allies, and other nations, which basically is people, the United States would not be what it is. You know, a superpower is not a standalone island. Does it have a lot of influence? Yes. Does it have military might? Yes. Does it have wealth? Yes. But nobody can make it by themselves. And the United States, you can't bully and buy your way. Greenland said no. They'd rather stay, up under Denmark, which I can understand that, you know. And the proper way of going about it, if you wanted to um set up, a base or military, which you already have some operations in the United States. They drew it down from Greenland. All you had to do, you make the deal with that particular nation, and you pay to lease the land, and you bring your troops in and you work out and negotiate a deal that's feasible for both countries. So that way, the United States could get the oversight and strategic advantage that it needs, and Greenland could still, maintain, its nation, you know what I'm saying? And everything could stay in balance. You don't go in just trying to bum rush and take it. But that shows, what I'm saying, a lack of discipline at the top of the helm. The way a certain individual thinks. You can't take everything, you know what I'm saying? This is not the Godfather. And if the United States doesn't get its act together and straighten up, um, they're gonna run themselves into some serious trouble. And I'm gonna tell you right now, they playing right into the BRICS nations' hands. They playing right into China and Russia's hands, man. They just sitting back like, yeah, you just doing our job for us, you know? But yeah, but a lack of discipline. Now, um, why does discipline show up more in struggling countries? Plain and simply put, because it has to. If you in countries where you don't know if you're going to eat from day to day, or you don't have the same amenities that you have in tier one countries, and your survival depends, what I'm saying, on your discipline and how you handle yourself, um, you're going to have discipline. You can best believe that if you want to enable your survival. So you have to have some self-control. You don't have the wealth or the opulence, or you cannot afford to for self pleasure and self gratification at the expense of your survival. So that's why a lot of struggling countries have discipline. They can't afford to be undisciplined or to get lazy, such as is the case with the United States. We got fat, dumb, and happy off the world using U.S. debt, known as the U.S. dollar. The most famous IOU that the world has ever known. You know, yeah, and um, why comfort weakens discipline. You know, um, Sometimes being too comfortable is a dangerous thing, and that's on a personal level, and what I'm saying, with an individual, whether it's a group or a nation. When you get too comfortable, um, that's probably when you're gonna get hit or when you got a fall coming. When you get too comfortable, and right, United States is like a drunken fighter. They got too comfortable, and now China, Russia, and certainly they got the drop on them. They got the drop on them. If you get a fighter that's too lax, and gets too comfortable because they've been champion for a while, and then they don't train as hard as they used to. They're not working on things. They kind of go to sleep and they believe their own hype, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you get an unknown fighter that on that given night that steps in that ring, saying boom, lowers the knockout blow on him, and then that world champion is wondering, saying how it happened. They just got knocked, off their heel. And the United States needs to wake up. It's a wake up call. Anybody can be knocked off their high horse. And the United States, I'm not trying to lie. And I'm not talking about every individual citizens, but those that are in power, many of them have been on a high horse. They have snubbed, um, nations in Latin America. They snubbed them. They have snubbed, Africa, and they only, um, want these nations so that they could use them. They didn't have no interest in Latin America before. Trump calling them, SO countries. You know what I'm saying? How dare you? They are people, just like anybody else. And just because, and see, this is the mistake, that some um um wealthy individuals make. They're so busy in a bubble and are used to controlling the lives of others while they themselves maintain autonomy. You know, you know, they forget, what I'm saying, where they came from. And if they ever came from somewhere, some of them were born into wealth. So they in this bubble. And so they don't realize what's going on in the real world until they get that knockout blow, and now they get knocked flat on their behind. And the United States has gotten way too comfortable. They've gotten way too comfortable. If the United States had discipline and they had learned to respect Latin America, they had learned to respect Africa, they would have went in and would have invested and would have worked out deals with both of those continents, you know, and the US would be much further ahead today. I mean, and I could go on, I could talk about other things even internally that the United States has done that has led to their detriment, But I'm not trying to make. I don't want to make it about racial demographic thing. But even you could look at how it treated some of its minorities. Could have been, what I'm saying, ahead. You know what I'm saying, if it were more fair and equitable. You know what I'm saying, to its citizens and definitely even to African Americans, they could have been further ahead. And there's others, what I'm saying, other minorities in this U.S. population, had they been more fair and equitable. They could have still been rich and, what I'm saying, could have got the production, of these other groups, what I'm saying. But they were greedy, gotta have it all. Don't want nobody else, what I'm saying, to have anything. They are like hogs. And now they are beginning, these elites in this government is beginning, what I'm saying, to drown in its own slop. That's right. A lack of discipline. They got high on the hog, got their bellies full, you know what I'm saying? You know, and they're undisciplined and they're like a fighter that is out of shape. They ain't ready. And now they're trying to scramble, to try to piece things together and trying to use more aggressive tactics. And it's like, that's not gonna work. That ain't gonna work, Now, um, what are some things that I can that well obviously I used the fighter, you know what I'm saying, as an example, you know what I'm saying, but even with military training, it requires consistency and discipline. You can't make it in the military if you are not consistent and you are not disciplined. And if you are not consistent and disciplined in the military, they will punish you. You will get spanked. You see what I'm saying? You will get spanked. Undisciplined military cannot function, and it cannot win a war. I'll say it again: an undisciplined military cannot function and cannot win a war. It's the military machine, and each part plays a role, and each member must know their role, and they have to play their role. There ain't no room for ego, you know, not in the military machine. As are there individuals that are egotistical? Sure, but when it comes to the mission, everybody has a job to do, and so um, if members in the military fail to do their job, that's costly. That's a price to pay. It'll cost them individually, and it will cost their unit. You know what I'm saying, or the people that they're working with. You know what I'm saying. You must be disciplined. You know, you got to do things that sometimes you don't feel like doing. You know what I'm saying, but you know, it's in the military rule book. You got to do it. And if you don't abide by those standards, you know what I'm saying, code of conduct, whatever it is in the military, they will bring down, you know what I'm saying, the strong hammer of the law on you. You know what I'm saying? To include busting you down in rank and even taking money out of your pocket. Well, the United States, they starting to get the global hammer of the law, you know what I'm saying, being dropped on. See, everybody's got to answer to somebody. And even the United States, you know what I'm saying, eventually they won't answer to God. The United States got to answer to God, but also they must answer to the global community because we all are a part of this thing. You know what I'm saying? No nation can just up and just do everything that it wants to do without paying a price. And the United States, if they don't stop, you know what I'm saying, they will pay a hefty price. What's another area where discipline wins out versus motivation? Working out. That's right, working out. You can't will your way to getting into shape. You got to burn some calories, and it takes sweat equity. That means you got to get up. You got to get up and run days when it's cold. You got to get to the gym. You got to pump that iron. You know what I'm saying? When you feeling, kind of sluggish and you feel like you can't get yourself going, you got to sacrifice time. You have to be disciplined in your diet. You got to get enough rest. You cannot burn the candle at both ends if you are going to lose weight and if you're going to be healthy and physically fit. You can't burn the candle at both ends. And I understand that every human being has some undisciplined habits, in their life. We all do. We got our cheat days, or maybe some of us may indulge, you know what I'm saying, or overindulge in sometimes food, alcohol, you know what I'm saying, or some may even be drugs, you know what I'm saying, but how they say it, everything in moderation, you know, but eventually, if you overindulge, it's going to catch up to you. And it's the same with the United States. But it's overindulgences, are beginning to show. And the United States, if you were to compare the United States to a person, its waistline has gotten really big. It's gotten out of shape. It's got, what I'm saying, a little bit too much fat on it, and it's got to be trimmed. And when the United States has to get in shape and you got to trim the fat on it, that means that there's going to be some pain and suffering because you don't get in shape, what I'm saying, without some pain. So that's why you got to learn to embrace the pain until your body, adjusts and gets used to it. When you got to go run or do cardio, when your lungs are burning, what I'm saying, when you got to push that lactic acid out, of the muscles so that it can get oxygen, what I'm saying, from the body, what I'm saying, to those muscles and recirculate. So the muscles can go through hypertrophy from lifting, what I'm saying, whereas they atrophy when you didn't. The United States is atrophied by a lack of discipline. They atrophied in their budget. They've atrophied in quality of life. In some places, it look like the United States is going backwards and turned into a third world country. Lack of production. What I'm saying? Debt ceiling going crazy and out of control. Um, they have these immigration issues. What I'm saying? Lack of discipline within the country itself. Politicians, what I'm saying, and leadership lacking discipline. Institutions, what I'm saying, universities lacking discipline, and these institutions and elites not doing their citizens right. A lack of structure and discipline, and you see things breaking down. Individuals not able to afford the cost of living. So as a result, they can't even afford to get married and produce offspring, for the next generation to support these systems that the United States put in place because of the United States greed, inequitable distribution of wealth. And I'm not saying that it's about taking necessarily wealth from anybody, but to those politicians and to the elites, what I'm saying, there needs to be a more fair, equitable distribution, or stop destroying your middle class. Let your middle class do what it do. What I'm saying? Let it do what it do, because there's more middle class than there are rich folks. There ain't enough rich folks, what I'm saying, bread. You can't tax them enough to try to support the programs that you got. There ain't enough of them. And um, and that's unfair to them. Say if they earned their wealth honestly and fairly, you know what I'm saying, without cheating and stealing and taking from others, you know what I'm saying, it'd be unfair. Make sure that they pay their share of taxes, their fair share, but don't, it's not right to gouge the rich either just because they made it, to wealth. That's not their fault, so long as they made it fair and honestly. But at the same token, you don't butcher, your middle class. Duh. You know what I'm saying? You need a robust middle class. That is the meat, in between your rich and your low class. You know what I'm saying? And they feed a lot of systems, you know what I'm saying? Undisciplined. And as a result, you see the structure breaking down, you know? And like I said, I'm just one voice, saying this, but the United States, they're gonna get the message one way or another. They'll get it one way or another. What else? Immigrant versus native mindset. And one thing I have to say this about some Americans in the United States, and what I do not like is that some, not all, some Americans, they do not respect other people's cultures, and some of them, they are arrogant. They arrogant as hell, and they some Americans are some of the most, you know what I'm saying, uninformed. Some of them, they are ignorant. Some of the foreigners that supposedly come from these third world countries, they speak several different languages, and to include English, and some of them, what I'm saying, are more educated and they're up to speed a lot. And I'm not, and like I said, I'm not knocking, Americans, what I'm saying, yeah, we hey, kudos, what I'm saying? Thank God that we were born here. But that does not, just because you have American citizenship, it does not give you the right, what I'm saying, to disregard and disrespect, what I'm saying, people from other countries and their cultures. And some, not all, some Americans got a nasty habit of doing that. They believe this lie about what is it, that like the Anheuser Busch commercial, or this BuzzFeed, that America, you know um is the best. Now, I'm not saying that America isn't the best, I'm saying, in some ways, and I do have pride, I'm saying, in my country, but we are not the best at everything. We're not. You know what I'm saying? And just because we're wealthy, what I'm saying, we've been afforded certain advantages, that does not give us a right, what I'm saying, as a nation to bully others, and also as individuals to bully others, with our arrogance, what I'm saying, and false pride. Some American citizens in this country, they need to eat some humble pie, and they need to get off their funky behinds. Get your passport, get out there and go see some other countries and learn how other people live, so you can get some perspective and learn to respect others. And that's just the truth. Some Americans, they do not respect, what I'm saying, people from other parts of the world. Some of them know more than we do, and got better skills, because we too sloppy and lazy. We're sloppy, lazy, and undisciplined, some of us. Selfish. You know what I'm saying? Some Americans, all they care about is what they can buy. You know what I'm saying? Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie. What's playing on the stupid box, meaning the TV. I want my cable. You know what I'm saying? I want my money, cars, clothes, rims, and 304s. You know what I'm saying? Too narrow minded to think or look long term. You know? And that's not all, but that is the case with some Americans. And I've noticed that. And then they have the nerve and audacity when they leave America to go visit other countries, to bring that arrogance. It's like when you go to somebody else's house, you respect their house. There's an old saying that goes, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, you know? And then they wonder why some Americans wind up getting dealt with by individuals from other countries. Nobody wants to be disrespected, not in America or outside of it. Everybody wants respect and deserves to be treated as a human being. And in America, some American citizens have a nasty habit, as well as a nation. We have a nasty habit of disrespecting other nations and people across the globe. You don't know them from Adam. But That is where discipline and structure breaks down and it trickles down. You know what I'm saying? It goes all the way up from the elites to our governments, the arrogance, you know what I'm saying, the pride, you know what I'm saying? And then when they get their behinds handed to them, they're the first ones to cry, you know? But yeah. Anyway, yeah, I know I sound like I'm ranting, like I'm on my rant, but I gotta get this out, man. All right. Now, let's talk about it. All right. Let's see. The global comparison. All right. Um, why people in developing nations or countries work longer hours. You know, they have a different culture. Um, they have a different outlook, and they don't expect anybody to give them anything. They believe they have stronger work ethic. Saying they not as lazy. You know, and I know that no country or nation is perfect, and I'm not understand this for anybody from the United States that's listening to this. I'm not talking about all Americans, but y'all know exactly what I'm talking about, and you'll see some of the stuff. Our culture as a whole, and this is a beautiful country, and it has afforded myself and other American citizens, what I'm saying, some advantages. But I think what's happened is that a lot of Americans, the citizens, and also the leaders, politicians, and at least those that have the levers of control, I think we fell asleep at the wheel. I think we've fallen asleep at the wheel, and we gotten sluggish and lazy. You know what I'm saying? Too comfortable to where it has made causing us to fall behind and has made us ineffective. You know, it's made us ineffective in some ways. And it has begun to catch up to us. And those that are in power, to include the elites working behind the scenes and pull the strings with the politicians, and some of the politicians that do control this nation. They're trying to hurry up and do a quick catch up and a reach back for power because they're so concerned about worried about China and Russia. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, hey, look here. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you know what I'm saying? China caught you slipping. They caught you slipping. You ain't stay on top of your game, and you didn't foresee. You didn't bother to have the foresight. You always thought that the U.S. dollar and that the U.S. would always the U.S. dollar and the U.S. military might, would always keep it, what I'm saying, keep it on top, what I'm saying. But it's like anything else. Um, I don't care who you are, and I like using sports. If you Michael Jordan, when Michael Jordan was playing, Michael Jordan had to train and he had to practice and stay on top of his game. And if you want the proof of that, look what happened when he came back, when he was wearing number 45, when he came back and his timing was off. Them guys in the NBA, they was taking it too. They was giving Michael Jordan the business. He was getting that work. And it took him a season, what I'm saying, to get himself back in shape. And he dropped number 45 and put on 23. You know what I'm saying? But as great as Michael Jordan was, without discipline and practice and hard work ethic, um, he would get the business, what I'm saying, like anybody else in the NBA. It's a highly competitive league. And even with all as great as he was, he still caught work, from other NBA players. There was still nights when he caught that work too, like anybody else. He got that business. You see what I'm saying? He dished out more than what he took, but he took it like anybody else also. And that's the same for the United States. You know what I'm saying? Once you get on top and you are labeled as number one, you got to do what it takes because now you got a target on your back. You know? Same thing with any fighter. You know what I'm saying? You go in there sleeping on your opponent, you know what I'm saying? You're going to get beat. And the United States, has underestimated and it has slept, what I'm saying, on other nations. You know what I'm saying? It failed to render due respect and to have foresight to keep it on top of its game. And that's just real talk right there, you know. But yeah, other countries they work longer hours. You know what I'm saying? They in some cases they have more of a team dynamic. Now There are some cases with, like, in the country of Japan, they've always pride themselves on efficiency, and I believe China's like that also. But now they're getting tired of being worked to death and being income. And I can understand it because I've seen it. I was stationed in Japan, so I've seen it. You know what I'm saying? And some of the people, they getting tired. Like, hey, we're not gonna keep on killing ourselves like this. There's a limit to everything. Corporations and nations should not kill its citizens, what I'm saying, in order to get production or to keep production up. There has to be a fair balance. But for the United States, we too far the other way. We don't got lazy because we figure, yeah, everybody using our global debt or our US dollar, you know what I'm saying, for everything throughout the world, so now we've gained a certain level of status, wealth, and power. We can just kind of slack off and kick back a little bit. Au contraire, mon frere. Not so. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so other countries, they work them, they put that work in, man, because they got to, they out to get it, you know. They are willing, other nations, they're willing to accept, some developing countries to get to where they got to get to. They're willing to accept some discomfort. Americans don't want to accept no discomfort or no pain. You know what I'm saying? I got a good example for you. Americans, you know what I'm saying, they would rather drive 20 minutes in a parking lot at Target or Walmart rather, to try to get as close as they can, you know what I'm saying, and squeeze their vehicle in between cars with no room, which a lot of them can't even get out anyway. You know what I'm saying? Rather than just take a parking spot, you know what I'm saying, that's a little bit further away and just walk like an extra 2 or 3 minutes, you know what I'm saying, to the store. You know what I'm saying? Don't want no discomfort. You know what I'm saying? Don't want to sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? Don't want to suffer, you know? And, I'm not saying all, I'm saying some, you know what I'm saying? Well, United States, enough, you know? Respect hierarchy. A lot of countries, they respect hierarchy. Obviously, Japan, China, Turkey. You know what I'm saying. Some countries in the Middle East. You know what I'm saying. And there's other countries where they do respect. You know what I'm saying, the hierarchy. You know what I'm saying. There's roles, man. You know, there's roles, and um, if it seems like I'm going down, up and down the United States and reading the riot act, it's because somebody got to say it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's coming out anyway. It's coming out anyway. But our undisciplined habits as a nation and as individual citizens, the chickens have come home to roost. The chickens have come home to roost. Um, why Americans complain more, have more options, and still struggle with purpose. It's because sometimes, when you're given too much, meaning that when you're born into this country, born here, um, if this is all you know, sometimes some Americans have a tendency to get lazy, and if they don't have things their way or their convenience is temporarily altered or taken away, they have a tendency to whine and complain and moan, rather than, adapt, saying overcome and adjust. And that's not all Americans, but it is some, and it is enough, you know, complaining and whining if they don't have their conveniences. You know what I'm saying? The American way is like Burger King, have it your way. Have it your way. You know what I'm saying? Have it your way. You know what I'm saying? The Burger King way. Everything can be custom made, which ain't nothing wrong with it if you can afford it and you work for it. Custom houses, custom cars, custom clothes. You know what I'm saying? Have it your way. Customize your food order. You know what I'm saying? And ain't nothing wrong. Like I said, I ain't hating on it. Ain't nothing wrong with some improvisation. I can dig it. You know what I'm saying? But oftentimes, sometimes having, too many options, it's like a kid, man. They can't make up their mind exactly what they want because they're too busy trying to get everything versus trying to get one thing and leave the store. Can't focus. Good look in the United States with this social media or the media. There's so many options, so many things to watch, so many things to buy. You see what I'm saying? I want it all. You know what I'm saying? It's all about me. No share, all take, no give. Selfish, selfish, selfish. That's why. You know, I'm calling it like it is, man. Straight up. Calling it like it is. All right. Now, um, what does discipline look like where you live, guys? You know what I'm saying? Tell me about it. You know what I'm saying? You could drop it in the chat or leave a comment, you know what I'm saying? In your nation, where you're from, wherever you're from. What does discipline look like, you know what I'm saying, in your country? And like I said, ain't no country perfect, you know. Just like people, we all got problems and got something wrong. And the same thing as a nation ain't nothing but people. We all have things wrong and things that can be improved. And if any person, any group, or any nation says otherwise, that's a bold faced lie because human beings are not perfect. Our systems are not perfect. Neither are our nations. Our laws ain't perfect, but nevertheless, you know what I'm saying? It is necessary. You know, tell me, guys, is it easier or harder to stay disciplined in your home country? Drop it in the chat or either just leave in the comment. You know what I'm saying? you know, um, money survival in reality. All right. Discipline matters more than money early on because it takes something in most cases to get the money unless you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You know what I'm saying? You got to earn it. And discipline is a habit. Money's not a habit. Money can help fund a lifestyle, you know what I'm saying? But discipline is something that you build, you know what I'm saying? And that must be learned and then you can harvest it to your advantage, you know? Countries with less still produce disciplined people. That's a fact, man, because they can't afford to be lazy. They got to go out and get it, man. You know what I'm saying? You don't work, you don't eat. You know what I'm saying? The myth of motivation. You know what I'm saying? Motivation involves, you know what I'm saying, how you feel about something or your inspiration. You see what I'm saying? But inspiration and motivation without discipline is what the Bible would call fake faith without works is dead. So you can be inspired and motivated all day, but unless you put discipline and you appropriate the proper planning and structure and put that into action and apply it, all it is just a dream. You see what I'm saying? Um, why routines beat inspiration? A routine is consistent. Inspiration is not. I'll say it again. Routines sometimes they may be boring, but they're consistent. Inspiration goes up and down. It comes and goes. Why discipline creates freedom later? It's like anything else. You reap what you sow. If you put the hard work in early on, you don't have to worry about stressing or trying to play catch up, later. And this happens, you know what I'm saying, in many people's lives. You can look at finances. If your money funny, you know what I'm saying? If it's going to be funny, you want your money to be funny, early on, not late in the game. You know what I'm saying? When you older, wore out and tired, and you don't have as many options or you don't have the strength or energy to produce, you know what I'm saying, output at that same level. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, you know, what else? You know what I'm saying? Cost of living, you know, cost of living, say how much does it cost in your nation, you know what I'm saying? But in America, things, and even in the West, but definitely in America, um, many parts of it, you know what I'm saying, it's, as a whole, the country, hey, that inflation is rising, man. It's killing people. You know what I'm saying? And, it is, hustle culture, is definitely, on the rise. But I've seen it overseas, man, where they get their hustle wrong. You know what I'm saying? Especially like and then I'll say like nations like I've seen it in Ghana, man. Um, and then so the people are running, they ran up to the vehicle trying to sell their products, you know what I'm saying, to us, you know. And I said, man, you guys, y'all be moving in them flip flops, the guys and the girls. And so I said, man, why y'all pushing so hard? He said, if I don't work, I don't eat. Straight up. It's as simple as that. You know what I'm saying? Gym discipline, like equals in some cases equals life discipline. A lot of individuals that train or people that work out, a lot of that those habits they cross over into their actual everyday life. Not everybody, but generally speaking, it takes something, what I'm saying, to work out and to get in shape. It costs you something. It takes sacrifice, what I'm saying? Nobody gonna give it to you, you know? Nobody gonna give it to you. But I'm gonna some straight, cold hard truth, all right? Comfort weakens people. Comfort definitely weakens men. Easy lives, what I'm saying? They create confusion. You know, you don't want a man that's too comfortable because a man that's too comfortable can become a lazy man and can become unproductive. And there ain't nothing worse to see than a man that has become useless. You know what I'm saying? Useless and undisciplined. A man should always have a purpose. And when men don't have purpose, they tend to get off into activities that they shouldn't, or they tend to waste away because they have no way to channel um, the energy and what they were meant for. Then if they don't fulfill their purpose, they get into things they shouldn't do, or they can become self destructive or just drift off and waste away. That's a sad sight. You know what I'm saying? And women need it too, but definitely for men, you know what I'm saying? You know, um, comfort, you know what I'm saying? It ain't for men. I'm not saying that you can't be comfortable, have comfortable times, but men ought to be about purpose. But easy lives, create confusion. Look at some of your Gen Z or some of the entitlement, I'm saying, in America. And this goes into for individuals as well as a nation. But when sometimes when things get too easy, individuals can become productive. Now, I'll give you a good example. This is outside America and what I saw. Like a lot of times in some countries or in Europe where they have more of a kind of like a socialist system, it kills the incentive to be an entrepreneur. And sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Whereas the United States, because it's individually minded, United States, it's more like you got to get it how you live. You got to go for what you know. So, and the lanes of opportunity are open, you know what I'm saying, to be successful. I'm not saying everybody can, but the, it is possible if you try and work hard enough. You know what I'm saying? In the United States, you got a shot. You know, some countries they don't have that. You see what I'm saying? And so as a result, when they get exposed and get these lanes open, when they finally can make it to America, that's why they be pushing so hard and they're able to excel and succeed sometimes and do better than some Americans because they see what we have. And a lot of times as Americans, we can get comfortable and sometimes we don't see and realize what we have and how valuable it is. Whereas others that don't have it, they can see it. And if they get a chance to get here, they capitalize and they take advantage of it. Some of them, you know. Um, let's see. Obviously, structure creates confidence. You know what I'm saying? When you have structure, you know that you have support. You got a routine, you got support. You know what I'm saying? You ain't just it's just your life or whatever that you're doing. It ain't just willy nilly. You know what I'm saying? It's something that's solid that you could stand on. Um, Discipline removes anxiety. You know, the more you do something, the more comfortable you get with it, and the better you get at it. Society they don't teach this anymore. Straight up. You know what I'm saying? They don't. You know, keep it firm, not aggressive. You know, and let's see. All right, as I'm getting to the close, discipline is a universal currency. This is a habit that will follow you no matter where you go. I don't care who you are. Discipline is a universal trait. It's universal currency. And if you utilize it and make it a core part of your nucleus in your life, it will benefit you. Doesn't matter where you're from. You know what I'm saying? It applies to money, fitness, family, purpose, you know, discipline. It applies to all that. And guys, I'll close with this. Um, Drop your country in the chat before you leave, or drop it in the comments section. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this and what you have to say. And I thank you guys for listening. And the name of this channel or podcast is this right here. It's my snacks 123 on Rumble. SNAKZ 123 on Rumble, guys. Yeah. So join and follow me on Rumble. Hit that like or unlike button. Um, to like the lives and the videos, leave a comment either way. I'd like to hear your thoughts. And also this will be going. It's also on Eric Brothers YouTube. EricBrothers. Eric Brothers YouTube. EricBrothersYouTube.com. So please smash the bell to become a subscriber. Turn on all notifications. You know, we don't want no shadow banning. And hit the hype button, guys, on YouTube. Hype this video for me. Come on, get me out there, y'all. Hit the like or unlike button to like. You know what I'm saying? The lives, videos. Leave a comment. You know what I'm saying? Let me know where you from. So you from the U.S., shout it out. Shout your town, shout your city. If you from another country, shout it out. Shout your town, shout your city, shout your nation, baby. Yes, indeed. Um, Also, share it. Share Snacks 123 on Rumble. Share it. Share it, brother YouTube. Also at my podcast, Snacks Thoughts. SNAKZTHOUGHTS, Snacks Thoughts. The podcast can be found on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Radio PBM, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and a host of other social media outlets. And I also have the five best weight loss products, which is for weight loss and also nutrition. So more to come on that. But guys, the link will be in the description. So click on the link. You know what I'm saying? Check out the products. Hey, buy them, share them with others so that they can take care of their health. Next to God, the next best thing that you have is your health, guys. And so you need discipline in order to take care of it. You get one body in one life, man. One body in one life, man. I'm trying to tell you. So take care, what I'm saying, of your health, guys. Your health is your wealth. Without it, what I'm saying, without our health, man, in this life, we can't do nothing. All right. But I thank you guys, what I'm saying, all the followers on Rumble and my YouTube subscribers. Thank you so much for giving me a purpose to be in these social media spaces. Thank you. And I'm signing out. Peace out, guys. Catch you on the next one.